Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Running a Race. Today's episode is titled Hurdles. The inspiration behind this episode comes from a post I saw by Joshua Bassett. I was thinking about it, I saw he's basically promoting his new book that he just came out with, and he says hurdles, depending on perspective, can either be an obstacle or an opportunity to strengthen your legs. I've mentioned before in previous episodes that I was previously in track. I was always intimidated by hurdles. Now, from a spiritual perspective, we could see that as I was scared of confronting a battle. If a situation occurred, I would run away rather than confront or try to deal with a battle. I know that, especially in this day and age, a lot of people try to seek the easy way out of things. And I'm just thinking about how we all go through different seasons in life, personal hurdle that I had been going through. And God reminded me of this Bible verse various times during this week where I was going through something really, really hard. And it was Exodus 14:14. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. In that moment, and even applying it to hurdles, you can think, well, what would that have to do with going over a hurdle? Well, maybe not going over a hurdle, you would need to be still. When you know that you're capable of doing something, you're less likely to doubt yourself and more likely to do it in excellence or in a way that you receive a achievement or a goal or whatever it is, right? There was a lot of stuff that I had put in here, and last minute I came across something else and it just took me completely for a loop. There is a few verses that I want to go over, and another one is John 16:33, and it says, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. When we find ourselves with hurdles, or suffering or battle, whatever you want to call it, it's really up to us on our perspective on how we take it. And when we talk about persevering and running our race, as I mentioned before, hurdles, they intimidated me. So if in this Bible verse it said, take heart, I have overcome the world, right? You will have trouble. But when we think about it, after practice, maybe, you fall and you fall and you fall. But eventually you learn how to overcome a hurdle. And once you do that, I think about something, sometimes we as humans, we fall into the same sin, and we fall into the same one. It's not necessarily that we open new sins, but sometimes it's us continuing in the same sin. And eventually we learn how to overcome it, right? That's what we should be doing. But, hopefully we learn how to overcome it, we stop it, and then we find other areas of our life that we can improve. And the point is to eventually become like Christ and more like him, right? So that is one way that we really do keep running our race until we reach that status of, hey, obviously Paul, the Apostle Paul, as I mentioned in previous episodes, he's mentioned it, I don't feel like I quite am there yet. When I was thinking a lot about these hurdles, I found myself coming across Deuteronomy 31:8. The Lord himself goes before you. He will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid or discouraged. And normally this is used, when someone is, being sent out, stuff like that. But when I was thinking about hurdles, I was thinking, God is always with us. Man, sometimes we feel like it's just us and we're facing these hurdles, we're facing these battles, we're facing these situations by ourselves. But when we turn around and we look and we're like, how did that get resolved? And there's actually this situation that I was dealing with a couple of weeks, and out of nowhere I looked around and I was like, how did this get resolved? And if I'm being very honest with y'all, it was when I let it go and I said, you know what, God, let your will be done. And I prayed that every day, even though there was a day where I really was like, bro, I don't even care. Like, what happens. There was like a little mustard of faith, and I was like, God, que sea tu voluntad. And that's how I said it. And it ended up happening. It ended up surprising me. I still thank God through it. And I said, you know what? Thank you, God, for still being there with me and still letting me overcome this hurdle. In that moment, I was like, man, and I already had the idea of hurdles as the next episode. But I'm finding myself not being able to find the verses for them. I started thinking throughout this hurdle, what Bible verses were inspiring you? And it was that Exodus. It was Deuteronomy. And John 16:33. Then when I really started thinking about it, really started diving in the Bible more, I came across Psalms 18:29. For by you I can run against a troop, and by my God I can leap over a wall. And man, that's literally like a hurdle right there, you know? It's describing, it's in the Bible. You know, you're gonna face hurdles. But I can run against a troop, and by my God, I can leap over a wall. A lot of people say this, you know, God's not gonna give you a battle that you can't overcome. He believes in you that much that he lets you come across that so that you can overcome it. I've spoken on this verse the entire time, right? But in reality, part of knowing that we can leap over a wall is knowing where our strength comes from. It's knowing how to overcome, right? There's a few more verses. I'm going to touch on them really quickly. Psalms 119:32, it says, I will run in the way of your commandments when you enlarge my heart. What exactly is enlarge my heart? It's H38:20, and it's kind of like a wisdom. We will know how to run when we have the proper wisdom, right? Hurdles, for a moment, they can seem intimidating, but when you know how to overcome them, when you know how to position your feet the proper way, jump the certain height, and do it at a certain speed, you eventually overcome it and you eventually know how to go over it. Part of that is acquiring wisdom. It's practice. It's learning how to do it. The other side, right? We can run to evil. And it says it here in Proverbs 1:16, for their feet run to evil and make haste to shed blood. We can either run in the right way, which is what I touched on in 1829, or we can run the wrong way. In Proverbs, I also found Proverbs 4:12, when you walk, your steps will not be impeded. When you run, you will not stumble. I love that verse because to me, it ties into Isaiah 40:31. But there is one more verse that I want to touch in Proverbs, and it's 18:10. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous run to it and are safe. What I have taken from it and what has, to me, I don't know how to say it in English, but a mí se me hizo rema. To me, is just at any moment, I can run back to the Lord. It's like the prodigal son. You know, at any moment, I realize I'm in the wrong, run to God. That's it. You know, and maybe I'll face a hurdle on the way. Maybe I'll face obstacles that are telling me, hey, no, don't run to God. But as long as I keep my eyes on God, I'm going to run to safety and I'm going to get there safely. Just to briefly end, one of my favorite verses, honestly, since I was a child, Isaiah 40:31. And it says, but those who wait upon the Lord will renew their strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. There's also a very common verse that's used in a song that I also love. It's in Spanish, and it's a little on the older side, but great song, great message. And this one ties in a lot with the whole entire reason for starting this podcast, which is Hebrews 12:1, right, about running our race. And to me, you know, run and not grow weary. I may face battles. I may face situations. I may face moments of wanting to give up. But I always try to make it a point to run back to the Father, because I know that at the end of the day, he's there waiting for me with open arms. No matter what I did, no matter situation, whether it was self-inflicted or whether it's a trial, he only wants the best for me. Romans 8:28, all things work together for those who love him. End off just on hurdles. I had been reading a devotional a while back. These questions really got to me, and I just want to share them with y'all. Do you let your pain shape your image of God, or does your image of God shape your pain? You seek God first in your struggles. How can you intentionally seek him more? I want to encourage y'all to, you know, reflect on these questions too. A lot of these verses, I already knew them. I've been hearing them for years. Last few weeks and these last few, maybe even 2 months at this point, they have hit like they've never hit me before. It's like I'm seeing them in a new light. This is your first time hearing these verses. I hope that, you know, God opens your eyes to be able to understand these verses and understand the message that I was trying to convey in this episode. I hope y'all tune in for the next one. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace out.